What is up, Gas Money Nation? It's Robert and Austin with the Inside Gas Money podcast, and today we have a very special guest for our latest episode in our Gas Money Mention series. In this series, we interview business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals to gather insights about their journey and, more importantly, generate valuable learning opportunities for young adults who are passionate about entrepreneurship. Today, we have our very first repeat podcast guest, who is our very good friend, Jaxon Evans. Last time we had Jaxon on the podcast, we discussed his experiences in running his pool business down in Florida, and now he's moved back up to Michigan as a realtor for Century 21. At 24 years old, Jaxon has accumulated a great deal of experience in the business world, and this is a great listen for anybody who's interested in getting into real estate. As always, we hope you guys enjoy this episode, get some learning opportunities from it, and if you have a business of your own, always feel free to reach out to us and hop on the podcast yourself. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Jaxon Evans.
Yeah, just catch us up, like the mindset where you were at, because you sold the business, moved back.
Yep.
What was going on in the meantime there? And then obviously now you're in real estate. So catch us up to like close to getting into real estate. Yeah.
So essentially, like basically, I think it was like December of 2020. Was that 2022? Yeah, 2022 is when I kind of just finalized like the, selling the business and everything. So basically, there was like a little bit of a transition period where, we accepted an offer, we reached an agreement, on how much I wanted to sell it for. But then also there was that, month-long transition period where it was basically, showing the employees how to run the routes, just the ins and outs of the business and everything, getting them familiarized with all the, all the existing clients, because they're in their backyards, they're opening gates, they got pass codes, all that stuff. So just kind of transitioning a little bit, and then moved back to Michigan in like mid-January or so, and kind of just did some side jobs and some side hustles, everything like that, until summertime. Then I got my real estate license, and I've been doing that ever since, basically. So
yeah. So with so you bought that business.
Yep.
That was a new experience. Then you ran the business. That was a pretty new experience.
Yep.
You're in Florida full time for the first time or whatever. So a ton of new experiences. And then you had to figure out how to sell it.
Right.
So with selling the company, you work through like some type of broker or something like that.
Yep. So
right?
you can. There's a couple different ways you can do it. A lot of companies decide to use a broker, just because they're really like helpful. They have they've got a lot of experience with doing that. I really kind of thought about going that route. I went that route originally, but it just wasn't really moving or anything like that. It wasn't getting done, wasn't getting sold. So we have I think it was like a maybe 5 or 6 month contract or something around that. And then after my contract was up, I kind of just started, reaching out to other people that I'd heard of in the business and the industry, and ultimately, found somebody that was interested in it, worked up a deal and got it done that way. So.
Yeah. And you sold the truck with it.
Yeah.
Right?
So I sold everything with it. I sold, all my equipment, not a ton of stuff, but, all this chemical storage, the truck that I had down there is new Ford Maverick, everything, all the, client list. And it was nice because there's this one program called Skimmer. A lot of pool, service people use it and everything. And it's kind of like a CRM, tracking everything all together, route builder. And it's like all in one place. And that was like huge on selling it, because I was able to, have everyone's address, everyone's gate codes, phone numbers, what their names are, what their dogs' names are. And it just was like super helpful, because when I go to transition, give him that information, and then he's got basically every single person that I've ever serviced, all their contacts and everything like that right there. And so it made the process a lot, smoother and easier that way. So.
Right. Exactly.
Definitely. And you had it for what was it? It was a little over a year, right?
It was almost like about a year exactly. I moved down there January 15th of 2022, and then I basically moved back in like January 15th of 2023. So it was about exactly a year from when I moved down there to when I got back. So
Definitely. And I guess just sticking on the topic of business, that was your first business, like real business you had. You purchased it, it was existing. It was a pretty big operation with Tidy Tiki. You had a ton of different pool routes you were doing. You're grinding every single day. with that, I mean, what kind of personal growth did you experience during that time period?
It was huge. I mean, there's really nothing I've done has ever compared to that kind of, growth I experienced, especially in a short period of time like that. I mean, it really going down there, especially, by myself, it was huge, out of my comfort zone. And, that was one thing I've struggled with, is kind of just pushing past that, saying you got to get out of your comfort zone and being able to do that down there. And it was like, I got to figure it out. It wasn't like, oh, I got, mom and dad to fall back on. It was like, I just spent all this money on this business. I got to figure out a way to make it work. And, kind of figure out how to live on live my own on all that kind of stuff. So, it was huge in the personal growth. One of the things that I've taken away from that is even just like my organization and everything. Like before, I keep, my room, somewhat tidy and everything like that. But after you get in the habits of, taking care of your own stuff, doing the dishes, just the day-to-day type stuff that, the adulting aspect of it, it just really like solidifies and encourages, you to be organized and keep everything neat and tidy and clean and everything. So that was one of like the first takeaways, I guess, that I kind of experienced just being down there right away, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. And in having, I know we talked a little bit about last night, and we've talked obviously off the record about this a lot, but when you were uncomfortable and the whole situation was probably extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So you could only grow from there.
Right.
And you just had to keep executing and trying as much as you possibly could. Getting into that network of, obviously you did a lot of self-training, listen to podcasts and YouTube videos, all that stuff for the pool stuff, the different chemicals and all that. But I'm sure you learned a ton when you got into that networking organization.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, that was one of the things, is just, basically people skills. I mean, you're doing, especially being like an owner operator type thing. I mean, you've really, you figured out pretty quickly, how people respond to you and everything like that. So you kind of learn what not to say to people, what to say to people, just general, just conversation. A lot of people, they want to go. And I'm the same way. I want to get that route done early and everything. But sometimes you just slowing things down a little bit, having a nice conversation with the client. I mean, it pays off tenfold, because next thing you know, a couple might not be right away, but 2-3 months down the line, they say, oh, so-and-so, one of my friends needs a pool guy. And that's huge. I mean, I bought the business with around 40, 45 accounts or so, sold it with over 80 accounts. So in just that year, and that's with doing very minimal social media, not really a whole lot of marketing, if any, basically, just word of mouth and, slowing it down, talking to the customer, showing that you actually care about their lives, and, really just trying to solidify that I'm not just here to clean your pool. And I think a lot of people kind of, took that into account and said, okay, this guy actually cares and everything.
Exactly.
So if you take care of your client pool, they're going to take care of you. So.
Yeah, and a large part of that, I feel like, is sales, and that comes with any business ownership experience. If you can get yourself to learn sales, become good at sales, build relationships with people, then no matter what you're doing, you're going to usually excel, because at the end of the day, if you're able to sell yourself by establishing those good relationships and showing people you actually care, making yourself stand out from the other companies, that's what makes people like you. And that's why you're able to double your referrals, just through talking to people, taking the time to talk with them, see how their days go and everything like that. And I feel like for you at the time, like, I'm curious just kind of how you got the transition to real estate. It's kind of funny, because at the time you were talking with homeowners about services you were doing at their home. And then now, a couple months down the road, now you're doing real estate, which is kind of in that similar path. Yeah. So did you anticipate getting into real estate at all? Did that ever cross your mind when you were doing the pool routes?
It did. So like, my aunt, who lives in where, I service the pools and stuff like that, she did real estate down in Florida. She still does. And, it was just kind of, like, it wasn't like something I'd really was taking super seriously at the time. Towards the end of it, I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to sell this business, I kind of got to figure out what I'm going to get into next, whether it be purchasing another business, in another state, or moving back home, kind of getting a little bit of, a reset type thing, doing real estate. You just have all these thoughts, and it was kind of difficult, with the process of selling the business for, a long time there. You don't really know when your time frame is. You don't know if it's going to be, you're going to sell it in a month, or it's going to be a year. So it was just kind of just grinding the day-to-day type stuff. But ultimately, like, I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. She was super helpful, trying to at least guide me, give me some sense of direction for the real estate thing. And I had talked about doing it right out of high school and just really never ended up going through with it. You know, it was kind of right around the same time period as COVID was going on. So just just a messy time pretty much for everybody. And I just never end up following through with it. And then once I got back, I was like, all right, I really got to sit down, take this course seriously, take my test and, get licensed and everything. So
now, is that when when did you get the course? Because that's the first step.
Yeah,
obviously.
right.
That's
so
the
like
first step.
originally I had the course from like 2019 or 2020 or whatever.
Shit.
So
I
it
didn't
was like,
realize that.
yeah. So I'd purchased the course then, never ended up really doing anything with it. And I was like, oh, you figure it'd be gone by then, you paid for it, you're out of luck kind of thing. And but sure enough, when I logged into my account, it had everything saved in there and everything. So basically just started from, the ground zero, just the first lesson started from the very beginning with the basics, and just went from there. Another girl at our office, Keegan, she's really helped. She kind of helped me and said, hey, I'm willing to, if you want to come join our team or whatever, I can help you study all that stuff. So that was nice to be able to like get some information from somebody who has taken the course and everything like that. So that was helpful as well.
Yeah, because once you got into, so you get back, and now we're kind of in that meantime between, okay, selling that business and then still trying to make some money because you got to make money.
Yep.
And then getting a little bit more serious about the course and real estate, then connecting with Keegan and the people at Century 21. I actually remember like when you got that first meeting when you sat down with all the guys and her there.
Yep.
Just walk me through like that, and then how did that then motivate you? Okay, I'm gonna like really get into this.
Yeah. So like I'd been toying with it, like I'd taken the course, but it was like more so like I don't know how much information I really retained from it. The first time I went through it, and you really gotta really deep dive into it and watch some extra stuff. But once I had that like in-person meeting with the brokerage, and all the guys over there were super helpful, with Keegan as well. And they just kind of like, once you sit down, they're like, all right, well, let us know when you pass your test. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess, if I got to take this pretty seriously now. So I kind of went back, just pretty much just studied, scheduled the test, like put a date. Cause if you don't schedule it, you're just going to say, oh, I'll do it, 2 weeks from now, and just it never ends. You'll never end up.
You got to make yourself accountable.
You just got to set that date and say, okay, well, I'm going to take it on whatever, June 15th or whatever it is. I got 2 weeks to do it. I'm not going to change that. And so I just set it for that, whatever day it was. And then just pretty much that, especially that week leading up to it, just went over all the cram courses, all the different stuff to just really hone in and because if you don't pass, you're gonna have to keep retaking. And I didn't want to have to drive, an hour down to the testing center, go through that whole thing, cost money too. So I just wanted to, kind of be one and done and make sure I was pretty solid going into it.
Right.
And once you pass that exam, what are the next steps? Like, what does that look like in the real estate? I would imagine there's a lot of mentorship that comes after that, but kind of guide us through that process.
Right. So once you get licensed and everything, and I'd already kind of had, the brokerage in mind that I wanted to go with and everything, because they were super helpful, throughout the process. So basically right after I passed, I just, told them, hey, I passed or whatever, and got in there right away pretty much. And they just showed me, around the office and everything. And basically with the mentorship, like Keegan kind of took me under her wing a little bit, and everyone at the office was super helpful. Like I know some of the offices are kind of cutthroat and everything, but I feel like we kind of have a pretty good, family setting type thing there. And, they were like, you want to go on showings, you want to do this, you want to do that. And it was like a perfect opportunity, like whatever I can get my hands on, basically, I'm going to take. You can't be picky about it or anything. And, you got to kind of have that mindset going into it. You're not going to start making, big money right away or anything like that. It's going to be a little bit of, learning experience. And there's a steep learning curve with real estate right at the beginning. So everyone just kind of took me under their wing and showed me around just the day-to-day type stuff that they're, doing with showings and listings and listing appointments and everything. So showed me really what to do firsthand.
Yeah. And now it kind of wraps back around. Now here's another form of uncomfortability, right?
Yeah, right.
Which is, that's, we've said this so many times. It almost comes up on every single episode, and that's the best place to be, because you're going to grow.
Right.
And with that being said, all the first times, I wrote this down, literally all the first, because there's, the first showing that you saw, the first, now it's your first listing. I guess I jumped forward, but all the first. So like, what was your first experience of like, okay, like this, okay, and now I'm kind of starting to understand it. Was it going over the contracts first, or was it going out and doing a little shadow and a showing, or what was
it? So like basically like I was working with one of Keegan's clients or whatever, and she was just kind of helping me, showing me, and I'm like, just putting up writing an offer up, I'm looking at the stuff and I'm like, this is beyond what I'm capable of. Like, I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at here, but I'm not understanding it at all. And but it's just more so like, you can look at something and read it 100 times and you're not going to get it. But once you actually go through the steps and, fill it out and everything like that, that's when you start doing it. And, if Keegan be like, write up this offer for me. So I wrote it up for her, and she'd say, okay, this isn't right. This, this is fine. This doesn't look good. You got to clarify on this or whatever. And just getting that like firsthand experience and everything, that's where you actually learn. You can look at a piece of paper 100 times and you'll never understand it. But once you start doing that, day to day, writing up offers, doing just kind of encapsulating yourself in the business is when you actually start to learn actually what to do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I mean, for me, obviously I'm kind of at that point now, the very first, and I'm in the same boat, like you said.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell am I looking at, kind of thing.
Yep.
And what was like the first time where, after there was a lot of the shadowing, and I'm sure there's still a ton of mentorship.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
You can't go wrong with that. You got to ask questions from people that have experience, and that goes with any business, any industry. I guess what's kind of some comparisons and differentiators from running your own show at the pool business as an independent contractor, as a real estate agent. You're running your own show, but you're also partnered with a company, and a brokerage and different, title companies and all the different people that have to be on your team to be able to fulfill a transaction or do everything. So there's a lot of differences, I'm sure, but there can be
there's a ton of similarities too, as well. Like, one of the things is communication. I mean, we're always, as agents, we always are communicating, trying to make sure all the dates are going to be lined up right. And with the pool business, it was the same thing. You had to communicate with the client. If something, they're having issues with something, you want to communicate that with them, make sure they're on the same page. And that's one of the things that's like translates super well with that, routine scheduling. A lot of agents, that's what I find is what a schedule that works good for me is, I get up early, go to the gym, get my workout in early, go to the office. And, a lot of people don't really like going to the office because it's not like you walk in the office and leads are just there. They're not handed to you or anything like that. You got to generate your own prospect. But I just feel like it kind of grounds me a little bit and keeps me accountable going to the office, doing what I really need to be doing, just sitting down and going over that stuff. So,
and in terms of establishing a routine, I feel like the pool business helped a lot with that, because I mean, we were talking about this the other day. You'd get up every morning at 6, get up bright and early, you go to the pool store, pick up the supplies, hit your route, and then you'd be done in time to have some time in the afternoon. And I feel like with real estate, and correct me if I'm wrong, but where a lot of people might struggle at first is you kind of get to set your own schedule in a certain way. Like, you're an independent contractor, so you could go into the office whenever you want. You don't have to go early. But would you say that having that pool route established and getting into the consistent routine of doing everything very similar each day helped you to establish a routine with the real estate, even though you have more flexibility?
I mean, like, I've never had a routine like as set and scheduled as the pool business. I mean, it was like literally probably the best thing anybody could do for a routine builder type thing, especially with that app I was telling you about, the skimmer software. I mean, you'd log in every single, all the chemical levels, what time you're, automatically tell you the time and everything, what time you check the pool at. And I mean, it is like habitual by the end of it. I mean, you could be to the same pool every single day for, a month straight, and it's going to be within 5-10 minutes, which sounds crazy, but it's 5-10 minutes from whenever the last time you were there or whatever. And it's just kind of crazy how, habitual you make that stuff. And it's really helped me, especially right now with real estate, is keep me accountable, keep me habitual in my habits and everything. So it's helped me, like, 10 times over just with the pool business translating to the real estate.
And I think there's also a lot of differences with repetition, obviously, with the pools. You're going to the same places on the same days, hopefully around the same times, because you built those habits. And in real estate, there can be, you're kind of going with other people's schedules, working around that stuff. Sometimes somebody calls you up out of the blue and you got to throw down what you have going on right now, go out and do that. How do you work in a schedule with that and a routine?
So it's definitely been a pretty large adjustment. Like I still try and get in the office early, but after that, I mean, after you get that, the first part that you can control, that early morning where you can control going to the gym, going to the office. After that, I mean, it's all hell breaks loose potentially. I mean, you could be going, have an inspection, you could be going to a listing appointment, you could be, have a bunch of showings scheduled. I mean, it's all over the place. And a lot of times you don't really know super far in advance, like somebody could just call you up, a buyer could call you up and say, hey, I want to go look at this house. And, in this market, you got to move pretty quickly. So you don't want, it's like, oh, you want to, keep your boundaries and stuff and not have to just drop everything. But at the same time, you want to do the best for the client. If they want to go look at that place and it's, it's fairly good price or whatever like that, it's going to move quickly. So it's sometimes you have to run around and do that type of stuff. And it's been definitely an adjustment in that sense.
Right. Yeah.
And walk us through the first experience in prospecting. I mean, where do you reach out to people? Is it cold calls? Is it through friends and family? And then after you reach out to people, I mean, walk us through your first experience and actually doing a showing, getting your first interested client.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's really unlimited ways to prospect. I think initially right at the start is just posting on social media, that you're, newly licensed agent. A lot of people, are excited about that. Their friends and family will share it, get the word out there and everything. And then also, as well as not, only on posting on social media, but a lot of your contacts, friends and family that you've talked to, that you built up, your whole life, just kind of going through, just giving them a quick call or whatever, saying, hey, I'm a new agent or whatever, if you know anybody, please refer them to me. And just kind of getting that word out there. I struggle with that at the beginning because you don't want to, sound too salesy and really, so it's kind of trying to find that balance. And I kind of found that, just kind of calling somebody up and asking them, some questions about their life and everything like that. If I see somebody, like a couple of my buddies got new jobs or whatever, just calling them up, and I'm not going to, do a whole sales pitch to them or anything like that. Just kind of checking in with them. And usually every single time they ask, oh, how's real estate going? And then it just kind of brings that conversation up organically versus me calling them, hey, anybody that wants to buy a house or anything like that? It just kind of sounds a little bit better and makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think a lot of, especially younger people can like that type of stuff. So
for sure. And it sounds like everybody does it differently.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's from our conversations, off the record, whatever, there have been different lessons you've went through that it'll work for other people, but for you and, your ethics and your lifestyle that you want to live, and also your professional way that you want to be perceived as can be a lot different than another agent. There's thousands and thousands of agents out there. I mean, it could definitely be looked at as kind of a flooded market.
It seems like everybody's an agent. Everybody knows an agent and stuff like that. It's just a matter of, showing that showing your true value. And a lot of the agents, I mean, literally, they say, the 80-20 rule, 20% of the agents do 80% of the business. And that's very true. I mean, pretty much you can take most of the brokerages and you look at most of them, and literally over half people don't do a single deal a year.
There's a group of high performers.
There's a group of high performers that do 20 or 80% of the business. So and that's true with a lot of things, but it's extremely true with real estate. You see the same names over and over and over again.
And your first showing by yourself.
Okay. I'm trying to think by myself first showing. So it was with one of another agent's clients or whatever. She had to take off. She, when I think she went out of the country or something like that, she's like, hey, just take these people on a showing. And I'm like, okay, great experience. So I work with them. The nice thing was I'd work with them, when the agent was in town, and just kind of shadowed, because I had really never been, on a showing or anything like that before. So really was like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to look at, what I'm supposed to say. Am I supposed to have, any paperwork ready or what? So Keegan kind of showed me, what she does, how her process is. And I liked, kind of her style and stuff, liked her approach. So when I was on my own, it was, younger girl, and then her mom was with her, picked him up. It's not typical nowadays, but it's, it's a nice thing to do sometimes depending on their situation. So we looked at like 5 or 6 houses the first time I ever went out with them, and I had to, ahead of time I had to, use the showing time app, get everything scheduled in there, made sure all the appointments were going to get accepted, because you got to request them. Sometimes they're going shows automatically accepted. A lot of times they're appointment required though. So it's really just like, and sometimes they require 24-hour notice. So it's like really like beforehand, you got to do some, got to do your homework and everything like that.
That's the thing. Research on the properties too.
Right. Research on the properties as well, because a lot of times they might send you something. And if you've got a really good understanding and you've asked the right questions to them and really know what their need is, looking at the property, because they just see the pictures, and the pictures nowadays can be so deceiving. I mean, you can really put some lipstick on a pig with these houses that you see on, listed right now.
Yeah. And
so basically just looking through things, like one of them might not have, air conditioning or something like that, where it's like that they're not really looking for something, that needs, or needs a bunch of work done to it, but the pictures make it look phenomenal and everything. So really just doing your homework, taking it slow in the back, in the back of this, back room or whatever. Just going and taking into account everything, reading the description and everything like that. So yeah.
And you want to show them what you hope that they're interested in,
right?
Because is that how it works? They kind of, you're on the phone with them or in person, and they kind of break down their whole explanation of, I want, a 2-story or a ranch, or and then I like 3 bedrooms, a couple bathrooms, or 1 bedroom, 2 whatever. And so breaking that whole process down, because I guess it's a slower market, I guess but is there a lot of listings out there? Like what is that?
Yeah. So inventory still, it's very low, especially right now, in the winter months and everything like that. Not a lot of stuff sitting a little bit too. So it's kind of a weird market. Everybody's a little bit unsure. Rates are starting to drop a little bit, but they haven't dropped off a lot for a lot of the buyer pool to, re-enter themselves or anything like that.
Right. But it's asking the right questions,
asking the right,
figure out. Well, okay, now let's break it down as far as we can.
So you really want to, figure out what their needs are and their wants are. Okay. And one thing that I've kind of learned is sometimes those change over time. I mean, they might look at something and their expectations are going to evolve over the time. You might show them 4 or 5 properties, and they might be like, okay, yeah, like we thought we wanted this, but now we actually want to, get something different.
Right.
And really being able to ask those right questions. So you're not just showing them the same stuff over and over and over that they thought they wanted originally, and now their expectations are something totally different.
Is it kind of like walking into, let's say a clothing store with a bunch of different brands, all similar, all have a shirt and pants section. And they're like, okay, I want this brand, this kind of shirt and this kind of pants, but they're looking around, and then now they're like, okay, that looks interesting too. So and that's the way it can evolve.
It can
that's
evolve.
why you got to work pretty hard with them.
You got to really find what their needs are, and those, like I said, they are always changing. They might not reveal, what they really want originally, and it's just a matter of getting that out of them. Tell me what you really want. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste anybody's time if that's not what they want to, what they really want. So
yeah,
that's a large part of sales too. Like right now I'm taking a couple sales classes at Florida State, and it's all about clarifying objections people have. Like, for example, if somebody says like, oh, it's not the right time, like you can't just assume like maybe it's too soon or something. Maybe they want to, like, you don't know what's actually going on. So it's really good to clarify questions like that. Like another big one's like, oh, I don't think I can make this purchase right now. Like, you don't want to just assume it's their budget. Maybe it's because they have another house they can't sell yet, or like, it's good asking questions. And that's what really interests me with real estate is it's so sales oriented, just learning to talk to people and ask questions. And in your experience so far, have you found just having good communication skills, conversation skills, and asking those proper questions have helped a lot with your ability to really uncover like what people are looking for and kind of guide them through the process?
The first time I was working with somebody, I was like, I kind of knew what they wanted, but I really didn't have it dialed into what like pinpoint accuracy on what they were looking for. And you kind of ask some questions and you kind of beat around the bush for a little bit and everything like that. And then after, that first time, I was, all right, I got to figure out, some type of like questionnaire or, these series of questions that I'm going to ask to really dial it in and figure out what they want.
Now, is that like some form of script thing? Because there's a lot. That's what I've learned. There's a ton of scripts out there. but it's got to work for you.
Right.
It's got to work the way that you want to be perceived and the way that you want to sell and provide value.
Right.
So
you know, some people really, really like scripts. I've, tried it a little bit. I'm more so, like dialogue type stuff and kind of being myself, but having a good understanding of where I want the conversation to go ahead of time and everything, and having those answers, and even just practicing the script, it comes off, for me and my, how it just comes off a little salesy for me personally.
Or fake.
Yeah, kind of fake. And some people can make it sound like the most natural conversation ever. Like I've practiced with the office with some people, and they just make it sound so smooth and good. And I just haven't got that dialed in yet. So just kind of taking the, ideas of the conversation, putting them into my own words is more so what I like to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that first time, like you said, you weren't as dialed in. Was it like, okay, you showed up at some of these places and it was a quick visit?
Yeah. Yep. So, like kind of taking you back to that first time that I had the first series of showings,
right,
when we had the 5 or 6 in one day. And you learned out real quick that, you might get one out of that whole, that whole section, that whole block that you actually like. And, you think, okay, they sent me it, I'll just get it scheduled. But it's like, in reality, you might want to do some homework and figure out if there's issues with it, or, what the real story is. If the pictures look a little deceiving, just letting them know, or if it's a flip and everything like that. So, doing that homework and everything is huge.
Right. Right. In addition to the transparency.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And putting in the work too, like just still on the sales topic with the scripts, like do you do a lot of like role plays in the office where you're talking with other agents, kind of playing buyer seller?
Yeah. Yep. So doing, role plays and everything like that, it's super uncomfortable, which is good. And that's like kind of with, having the business and everything like that in Florida really helped, because I'm more receptive to it now. Before it was like, I didn't like it, I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it, whereas now it's like, I don't like role playing, but I'll still do it because I know I'm growing from it. And just seeing that progression over the first time you role play or whatever, and it just sounds terrible. You're stumbling through everything. And a lot of the stuff that I just started with, I'm starting to kind of, use my own words, but also presenting it in a way that, comes off as really, like I know, what I'm talking about, and feel confident with it, which is huge.
And it's you.
Yeah, and it's me. It's not me reading off a script that doesn't sound anything like me. I'm using my own words. It's more so a dialogue versus a script.
Right. Has there been, like with the pool thing, you learn from the big pool guys on the podcasts or the YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Have you done that also with real estate?
Yep. So, I mean, just watching, you find with any industry, it wasn't as bad with the pool business because it is more of like a niche kind of market, but there's so many agents. There's a lot of noise out there, a lot of gurus and all that kind of stuff. And you kind of got to filter through some of the stuff. And a lot of people in the office kind of helped me with that as well. Like, all right, like I wouldn't really put much time into that, but this is what I found when I first started, what was helpful. And, this series of videos were super helpful. So just going that way.
Yeah. And we talked about how impactful in sales communication and being a conversationalist can be extremely impactful and beneficial for the value you're providing on their end, and also for your end, because like you can kind of work the conversation to help them out as much as possible while it also helps you out. Also, I'm sure you've had these experiences. I know we talked about, you went to one of the networking conferences kind of things, and there's some high performers that you're like, how?
Yeah, right.
Because either they don't have that side, but they have their niche that they work with.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Talk about that, because I don't know how it works. Maybe we can't answer the question.
Right.
But.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's kind of got their own, certain sphere of influence is what they call it or whatever. And everybody's got their own niche. Like we've got some guys that just strictly deal with land. That's their thing. They've done that for 30 years. And that's all they stick to, and they're locked up with all those people that list the land. You got some people that specialize with first time home buyers. You got people that are, specialized with elderly people that are having a tough time, trying. It's a bad experience they've had in the past or anything. I mean, you've got all different people and all different spheres of influence that you're able to tap into and everything.
Yeah, and it sounds like each agent kind of, as they get experience, there's not, and there probably is those broad agents or general agents that are able to work with all different spheres.
Right.
but it sounds like as you get on that path and get more experience, you kind of find your niche.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like right now it's kind of whatever I get my hands on, I'll work with, just because it's great experience and everything. But a lot of the agents, they kind of grow out of the smaller stuff and they graduate to the larger stuff. But they still do the small stuff. Like I'll do anything, just to kind of learn, get the hands on, get the hands dirty, learn from those experiences, learn from those deals, writing up the offers and going through that whole process. I mean, the more reps you get in, the better. So.
On the social media side of things, recently you made a post about a listing, really good listing, by the way. It was like nice house, beautiful property. And if I'm correct, you made the video, you had the drone video, you did the house video, everything like that. And it's funny because like I remember back in high school, you had Stylus Outdoors and it was all YouTube oriented, like making videos and stuff. So how is your like past experience in like videography, drone shooting, stuff like that helps just kind of make it easier and help you save money? Because I know a lot of times if you're going to pay for somebody to do the video work for a house, it's pretty expensive.
It's not cheap. It's honestly huge for me, and not just the money saving aspect of it, because that's definitely a part in it. But at the same time, like it's something I truly enjoy. Like I was doing it before I was making any money doing it, and just being able to kind of add that in and something I enjoy, and making the videos and flying the drone and everything. I mean, it just makes the job that much better because it's something I truly like doing. So
yeah, and you're getting paid for it too,
right? And
exactly. It's going to help you make the sale. And I was going to ask too, and I'm not sure if this is where you're going, Austin, but that the video you posted ended up doing great on Facebook. Like I think it got a couple thousand views, and you ended up getting a lead from that. From the post, correct?
Yep. So
it just shows
it got, and that's the thing is like exposure. A lot of agents will take a quick little snippet video, and sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't do well. But I think just kind of going above and beyond and really encompassing the whole property. It was a really nice lot. I was on 5 acres, had a pole barn on it, had a pond on it, and just had a beautiful. And that's the cool thing about it is, if I'm doing it myself, I can kind of pick a good time frame to go out there. Whereas if it's a bigger company and they got to schedule and they got 10 other people they got to do that same day, you're gonna, whatever time you get is what you get. Whereas I was able to go over there, one night when it had a beautiful, just absolutely gorgeous sunset going on, and could do exactly what I wanted to do with it, and really encompass the whole property and not just take your regular pictures and call it a day.
Yeah. And you have the eye for it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You saw that and you were like, holy shit, this is the opportunity.
Right.
Whereas, some people, especially agents, I mean, maybe they'll, call their photo guy up and say, hey, you want to go out there, but do they have time?
Right.
Do they already have something scheduled? And so you're able to provide the value for yourself and also for that client that much further. And you're able to go above and beyond. Whereas instead of trusting, somebody else to do it and kind of having to micromanage and all that stuff. So now you've seen both sides. That was obviously your first listing.
Yep.
And on the seller side, and then you've seen the buyer side. So there's obviously some differences.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what have you seen on the buyer side? What have you seen on the seller side?
So I mean, especially like right at the beginning, working, because I've closed 3 on the buy side or whatever right now, as of now. Hopefully 4 here in the next month or so, and then the first listing as well. But like due to like lack of experience, I guess, during the beginning, like when I was working with the buyers, I mean, we were just looking at so many houses. I mean, and it just really like was just due to like not asking the right questions, like I mentioned previously. I mean, it was just like driving down to, Lake Orion, all over the place every weekend, showing them, 5 or 6 on Saturday, another 5 and 6 on Sunday, sometimes slipping in, 2 or 3 after work at night, and just driving all over, all over the place. Whereas with the listing and stuff, you put in, the work originally, I go out there, with the listing appointment, do that, sign got up, did the, photography, the videography, the drone work, all that stuff, getting the house ready and prepped. But I mean, after that, you can kind of we did the open house as well. So you kind of put in a lot of that work, initially, but after that, you got the buyers coming to you. So it's totally different. And so it was a good first experience doing it that way though. Right. Like being on the listing side, definitely.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Saturdays and Sundays.
Yes.
So obviously, as in any kind of business, if you're gonna run something or if you're going to be a contractor, or if it's going to be your personal brand that you're putting out there and providing value, you got to put in the extra hours.
Right.
And most people, I feel like today, either that or going into going through college, getting their standard job, Saturday and Sunday's off limits.
Yeah.
And so with this, like you don't have a problem with it, obviously. But how it's definitely affected your life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So like essentially, like it was kind of a nice thing with the pool business though, because I did work a lot of Saturdays and Sundays. And I hopefully when I'm, more experienced and I've got, I've kind of established myself in the industry that I can take those times off and have, a team and have a buyer's agent that'll go out there and show them the property. But for right now, I mean, you've got to put in that extra effort and get out there. I mean, especially because if there's so many agents, like we talked about how flooded the market is with agents. If you don't go show them those properties on Saturday and Sundays, you're not doing your job, for one. And also they're just going to go to the next guy because they sure as hell probably have another agent or two that they know of that they'll just go right to. So just go right down the line. So
because they're busy during the week, so that their time is open.
Right. Yeah. So if they're working, a typical 9 to 5, they're not going to, especially during the winter time when it gets dark out, 5:36, there's no time to really go look at a place, So those weekends, especially, if you want to hit up a bunch of open houses with them and stuff, and that's also a huge thing to do, is just going to the open houses and networking and everything with that.
Right.
Definitely. And with doing it on the weekends, that's when a lot of people are out of work. They're a lot more willing to do the open houses and stuff. Like it's a lot more flexible. And I feel like that's a large part of it. Like if you're trying to do an open house at like noon on a weekday, a lot of people aren't going to be able to make
that. Yeah. You're eliminating pretty much your entire buyer pool for the most part. I mean, there's really not going to be a whole lot of people that can do it during the week. So.
Exactly. And I guess like kind of transitioning a little bit, just like lessons you've learned along the way, like have there been, like I'm sure there's probably a lot, but like any, not necessarily misconceptions, but like any surprise you've had in the real estate industry or things that have been a lot more difficult than you thought they'd be at first when you started?
Sure. So, I mean, one of the things is like, with there being that many agents and everything like that, I mean, you've really got to, you might expect, oh, so-and-so, I'm friends with them, they'll definitely use me. And that's one thing you don't ever want to assume. If you don't communicate with them, because they might not even know, you think, oh, everybody's seen it on Facebook, but they might, who knows, you might not have them on Facebook, they might have missed it and everything like that. So really just communicating with everybody and really making sure that they know you're an agent and everything. Because there's been a couple times where I'm like, man, dude, like I really could have, worked with that client. I went to school with them or whatnot. And if I would have communicated with them, I would have been able to work with them. But just not assuming that, oh yeah, they know I'm an agent, they'll use me, is one of the things that I took away like really quickly. So
yeah. And that's the thing too that I've seen, because you said the masses of agents.
Yeah.
And then, let's say you're working with younger people our age. That are going to be first-time home buyers, maybe second time. You never know. But they have families that have either been in multiple homes or whatever, so they've worked with an agent. If they had a great experience, they're going to refer that person to their son or their daughter. So that's, even if, like you said, even if you did go to school, there's no way like you can just assume it because there's so many.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the hard part. You gotta differentiate yourself.
You got to show your value, your worth, and everything like that. So that's a huge part.
Yeah.
Huge part of it. I'm a newer agent, but I really feel like I have, try and have a good grasp on the markets and what's going on. Because I think what I've communicated with, with the listing agents and stuff on the buyer side, sometimes, I mean, they might be like, I won't answer my phone after 5 o'clock. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But like, I'd like to be, on my, like, if somebody needs to get a hold of me, they can get a hold of me anytime. I'm not going to eliminate part of my business if it's after 5 o'clock. Sometimes real estate can be anytime.
Mm-hmm.
And if they got questions, I want to make them, make them feel like they made a good, comfortable decision. I'm not going to pressure them into anything. So if they got questions, or if they're looking over one of the contracts, to say, I don't want them to be afraid to ask me, what's this mean, or what is this money? What's this for? What's this fee? What's this? I want them to be able to feel free to reach out to me and say, hey, I got a question about this. Can you at least, further explain it?
Yeah. And with that too, you gotta think in your head, because you don't want, the last thing you want to do is bullshit anybody.
Right, absolutely.
Because then your future perception, if that is called out, or if maybe in their heads they're like, yeah, I don't think that was the right answer or whatever. So you want to also say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get back to you as quick as I can. I'm gonna talk to the mentors.
Like there's always stuff you're not gonna know the answer to, but it's just really saying like, I really don't have the best answer. I could tell you an answer what I think, but let me find out for you. Let me get that information. Let me talk to somebody that's had that experience, dealt with that before, just to kind of get their take on it. So
yeah, you never want to
I'd rather tell somebody, hey, I'll get back with you, than tell them something that's not true and then just say okay, and then now that's your expectation of it. So
exactly, and they'll understand even if you don't know something that seems like it should be general knowledge. It's better to say, hey, let me check on this for you. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And like you said, having the phone open after 5, that's what you need to do to be a high performer, and that shows that you care about your clients. Because if you're not willing to take calls after 5 p.m., one, you're closing off a lot of opportunities you could have to like talk with people to get more sales. But at the same time, that's showing that you're just seeing this as more of a business rather than actually helping people out. And in a lot of people's minds, I feel like psychologically speaking, if their realtor isn't willing to talk to them after 5, it's like, do they just see me as a source of income? Like, are they actually trying to help me out? And by having that personal relationship, it really shows that you care about them. And I guess like going a little further too, like just keeping up with the trends in the market, like especially nowadays, 2024, the housing market's like pretty crazy. Like obviously always opportunities for rapid changes or a lot of different updates going on with the interest rates, mortgages, everything like that. What's like the best way you keep up to date with all this stuff? Like, is it news articles? Is it podcasts? Is it just talking to people in the office?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like there's a lot of noise is what I call it, and a lot of people call it that as well. But I mean, you can click on a news station. They're going to say, now is the best time to buy. Now is the worst time to buy. I mean, it's all just, people are just yapping about everything nowadays just because they want to get people fired up. And I just feel like going into the office and really seeing, like, talking with the other agents with their firsthand experiences, that's the best way to really get an understanding, because they might be talking about something on, whatever news station, but if that's out in California, they're in a totally different market than we're in. I mean, it's there's some same general trends, but stuff happens way differently. The business works way differently out there than it does, or in Genesee County especially. So really just, feeling out the agents, what their experiences are, like, hey, you feel like there's been a little bit less business going on lately. Have you had, been multiple offers? Have you not had a lot of offers? Has there been a lot of people at your open house? Has there not been a lot of people at open houses? We've got a board at the office that, has all of the companies do listings. It's like, sometimes, it'd be like, oh, there's only a few on there, like normally there's 10, 15, 20 on there, and just kind of give you like a little bit of a gauge on what other people are experiencing. Especially with my first year, I'd never really had any expectation of what it was going to be like. So, really understand, like, it's going to be slower in the winter. You can't expect to be doing as much business in the winter as, you are in the spring and the summertime. It's just the way it operates. So,
and is that because of nicer weather, people are more likely to think about, oh yeah, I'll go look at houses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, even like the last, we've had some really nice weather here the last like 2 weeks. There's been some cold days, but some days have been in the 50s and even almost the 60s. And I mean, you feel it firsthand. Even, I mean, you get more people that are contacting you saying, hey, I want to get this house listed and everything, or at an open house. I mean, a lot of times in the wintertime, depending on what it is and how well it's marketed, but sometimes you might only have 1 or 2 people, whereas at our open house we had over 20 people. It was a beautiful, nice day, and even though it was in the wintertime, in February. Once you get those nice weather days, you just feel better about yourself. Even just getting the vitamin D from the sun and everything like that, it just kind of changes your mindset. People say, oh, I feel kind of better. I get not all cooped up.
They want to get out.
They want to get out. Yeah, absolutely. They've been cooped up all winter long, freezing. They've been, seasonal depression, whatever you want to call it. Once we get those nice warm weather days, it just people get, a lot more fired up about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've always been curious. Like, if you do a showing on a rainy day, like they're walking around the yard, it's muddy, like that's got to have some sort of.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes you got to try and, like, if you think it is the perfect property for them, you really got to kind of show them, like, hey, I know it's a gloomy, the yard's all flooded out, but that's, we've had 2 inches of rain or whatever like that. Can be extreme weather and everything, and sometimes you just got to, kind of focus in, like, hey, it's also going to be a beautiful place in the summertime. We just had bad weather, if you want to go look at it again when it's, nice out, you might change your mindset. So, but I think 100%, I mean, like if we would have had, 2 inches of snow on that open house day, I can almost promise you that there would have been probably, significantly less amount of people there. Especially with people moving, even not even just looking at houses. A lot of people don't want to move. I couldn't say I would want to move. There's still, everybody's got different situations. So they might have to sell their house. They might have to move. They might be changing jobs or whatnot. But just as a generality, not a lot of people want to move in the winter. Dealing with the cold weather, the hassle of that. I mean, it just complicates things a little bit more.
Right. And with the open house too, do you like what do you talk? You answer questions obviously if they're asked. But how much do you actually know about the property? How much homework do you have to do? How much you don't want to upsell anything that is
you don't want to promise, you don't want to over promise and under deliver.
But what's your plan on going into that? Because I mean, well, what was your plan, and then what did it actually end up being?
Right. So I mean, like I think that like I've held open houses up for other agents, and I've definitely struggled a little bit more with that because you don't have that understanding of the property nearly as well as if you were the listing agent. A lot of listing agents, they'll just refer off to, another agent in the office to cover for them. But like with having my own listing and holding an open house there, it was a totally different experience because you kind of know the ins and outs of the house. You went through it all, all the updates, what they've replaced. Yeah, it's yours, like it's your listing. So you really have a much deeper understanding of the house and the layout, the different rooms, everything. I mean, you just take all, especially because you spent time there, you've photographed it. It's way different of an experience.
Mm-hmm. And as you kind of looking more towards the future too, I mean, you're young, you're 24 years old. Austin and I are both young as well. And that's what this podcast is dedicated for. So to start out on the subject of being young, like you're getting I feel like this is a great time to enter the real estate industry. Like obviously very competitive, a lot of possible volatility, but at the end of the day, it's a great learning experience as a young person. And for yourself, just speaking in the future tense, like, do you see yourself continuing to grow your experience with real estate and then the like personal house industry? Like, are you looking to maybe get into like duplexes or larger properties as you kind of grow your skill set in the future? Like, what's your like maybe 10-year vision?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I really I'm a big hunter and everything like that. So I mean, eventually, like right now, like I mentioned before, I'd like to get my hands on whatever I can, help as many people as I can, especially people I went to school with, first time home buyers and everything. But eventually, like my niche I'd like to kind of get into would be larger hunting acreage properties, potentially stuff up north, even bigger parcels of land in the UP or northern Michigan, because I just love it up there. I like to hunt up there. Just the beauty of northern Michigan, I'd really like to kind of get a firsthand experience of listing those type of properties would be what I'd really like to focus on, as I grow as an agent.
I know we talked a lot about that too, because you've seen in the office, a couple different people that's kind of their niche.
That's their niche, yeah.
And I guess there's got to be some big differences though of just a residential property. Maybe there's some acreage on the property, but it's still you're selling the home.
Yep.
You're not selling a property that could be a deer farm or something like that, or just property for people to lease out in the future for hunting. So it's perfect, first of all, because to get into that, because you have the passion for everything that can be done on this property. So then you're able to provide your perspective to sell it and show all the value that it has.
Right.
But also what can you maybe predict the differences being, because you don't have the experience necessarily?
Yeah. So I mean, like I think there's obviously gonna be differences, like your buyer pool, depending on, what the market, where it's at and located is going to be totally different. Like if you had a nice house in Grand Blanc in the subdivision, if you price it right, you're going to have a lot of activity and a lot of attention to it. Whereas, if you get something up north, you're going to have a whole different pool of buyers. And a lot of times it's not going to be, their first house they're buying. They've got properties all over the place. They want to get that, something up north. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I, think would be different about it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And that's the beauty of sales, first of all, and then also showing you got to get your feet wet,
right?
And especially being in real estate, and then like we were talking about earlier, finding what could be your thing.
Yeah.
Because if you have a passion for it, yeah, I mean, we've all, like all of us, even Rob, all of our friends, like we're on a nice lake or whatever, out on the boat, and we're just looking at houses oh man, we're all going on Zillow and like looking through, this is super cool about this. Like there's passion for that.
Oh, absolutely.
But then if you can even add on, your personal passions, that's
which would be like, that's really what I would like to do, especially having this first listing be, on a little bit of acreage, have some really awesome features with it, with the, having woods on it, as well as a pond and everything. I mean, it just really gets me fired up, because like eventually that's what I'd like to focus on. I mean, I really truly enjoyed not just the listing aspect of it, but really just kind of walking the property, looking at the different, features it has. I mean, I'd live for that stuff.
Definitely. And that's awesome. You have that passion, man. And that's what it's all about. It's finding something you enjoy doing. You get to basically set your own schedule every day, and the connections you're going to make through it too are going to be amazing. Like, I know you're going to kill it. So I guess kind of wrapping it up. Just one thing we like to ask on the podcast. And I know we asked you last time, but I'm curious just to get your opinion this time, like specifically advice to somebody our age, like a high school or college student who's looking to get into real estate specifically. What would be your advice for them, like when they're just starting out?
So I think one of the things that I've really like came to the realization, and it hasn't been like my thought for the last year, but I think within the last like couple months, I've really made some realizations that there's so much on social media that says, now is, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And if you're passionate about something, go for it. I mean, there's really, you won't know until you get into it, and really just being able to get those experiences out of your comfort zone helps you grow so much. I mean, like I said, in that year of the pool business, I grew, if I would have just stayed home, I wouldn't have had, a quarter of the experiences that I had just down there in that year. And I feel like I grew, 3 or 4 years, in experience just from that one time down there. So I really say, there's so much noise with social media. Just if you're passionate about something, just go for it. I mean, there's really nothing holding you back except yourself. You don't want to be self-limiting.
Yeah. No, I love that. With real estate specifically too, are there anything that you would say to look out for that you didn't realize until you got into it?
So one of the things is like, you don't have the expectation, and I kind of knew this going into it, but don't expect like, oh, I'm a real estate agent, I make a ton of money, like you're not going to get into it. And it's just like, it's not like nobody's handing you these deals. I mean, you can pay for leads and everything, but if you don't, have the deep pockets for that, and then also, who knows if you're going to be closing those, especially if you're a newer agent, you probably don't have the experience to close those deals anyways. So don't expect, if you're going to get licensed, it's going to take some, hard work and effort. Don't expect just because you're an agent, you're just going to be making, rolling the money in, especially right at the beginning. You have to put in the effort. Anything, worthwhile is going to take, put some effort in and some hard time. So.
Exactly.
It's
good, man. Yeah, I think that's perfect, and we can start to wrap it up. I know we talked about this before this, but I think this would be really good to get out there as much as you can, because you're really trying to show value.
Right.
You're not in this. You're not a sleazy salesman.
Right.
And there's what's kind of sucks about sales nowadays, and in any industry, not just real estate. There's the bad actors, and they can be perceived as a good actor, but when it really comes down to it, they're not going to try as hard as you are.
Right.
So that's huge. Is there any your real estate social medias? Throw that out there.
So you can just follow me at Jaxon Evans Realtor on Facebook. I kind of share a lot with my personal page as well. And then I think it's the same thing for Instagram. Try, and that's one of the things I have struggled with a little bit, actually, is the social media aspect of it, especially right at the beginning, because, if you don't have a ton of business going on, you're not really sure what to post, what to put out there and everything, and having some content that you can put out there that shows some value, especially showing, especially if you have listings and you're closing deals, you want to show you're actively practicing real estate, because otherwise people would just say, oh, he's an agent. Yeah. So are freaking 40 other thousand people in the state of Michigan. A lot of them don't close any deals though. So it's really showing that, you're actually in the business. You're here to stay. Basically, you're here to do the work and put the effort in. So,
yeah, and it's one of those things over time. It'll gradually build up. You got to start with the foundation. And it sounds like you've done a good job of establishing that. And then for the service area, it's mostly like mid-Michigan, right? I mean, obviously,
I'll pretty much really, it's kind of mid-Michigan. I like to stay around, within like an hour and a half of Davison, Genesee County area. Eventually maybe I'd start to like to go, even the northern parts of Michigan. I mean, I would really like to focus on that. It's further drive, but I mean, you can easily justify it with how, beautiful it is and the experiences you can have up that way as well. So really anything I can get my hands on, in northern or middle Michigan, I'll take. So
definitely. Yeah. So if anybody's listening, interested in buying or selling, hit up Jaxon, connect with him on Facebook, give him a call. And man, this is a great
questions, even if you're not looking right now, or you don't know anybody that's looking, even if you have any questions and just want to say, hey, like, what do you think about this? I want to buy 2 years from now. What should I kind of figure out for a down payment? What should I do this? I can help guide anybody with that kind of, any questions they have.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Evans, thank you so much for hopping on today. Some great advice, learned about realty, and I think a lot of people are going to benefit from it. So I guess without further ado, of course. Thank you guys for listening. Like we always say at the end of our episodes, go get that gas money.